live from the Counterpunch Media mobile studios in Grand Blanc, Michigan. It's time for real lives, real families, real fitness. It's time for Derek Noel Fitness.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Derek Noel Fitness Live. I am Derek Noel, and we got an awesome show today. In case you didn't know from what the description was saying in my post earlier, or maybe you just didn't see it, we're talking about how to train the different muscle groups. And we're going to take a kind of deep dive today, just like we did last week with our Q&A, which, by the way, I really hope to do again soon. Probably next week will be another Q&A, so if you have any questions, drop them down below. Or, as always, if you have any questions about what we're talking about today, drop them below, and at the end of the show, I will take a look, and if there's anything that I can answer real quickly, then I will. Otherwise, I will make a video during the week to answer those questions. Got the finger guns going today, full force. It's going to be a good show. Anyone who knows me, finger guns are the deal. So, last week we were talking Q&A. We were a lot about nutrition and deep dives for nutrition, and earlier this week I posted a post on my personal Facebook page asking about what videos people would like me to make. That way I can make more content. And one person asked me about how to train the different muscle groups. I figured we would actually go one step farther than that. She specifically said without being too sciencey, which I like to pride myself on not being super sciencey about things. I might give you like a technical term or something like that, but I would much rather give you the information in a version that you don't have to worry about. Like, you don't have to know the specific muscle groups or anything like that. So we're going to be breaking it down so that anyone could understand it. So if you have a kid who would like to learn a little bit more about how the body works or something like that, this is the episode for you. I actually have so many notes for this. I don't think I'm even going to include legs today. We're talking all from the waist up. A few episodes ago we did talk about the abs, so I would rather you honestly go check that out. You can find that on YouTube. You can find that on IPM Nation. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can find it back in my video section. So if you want to talk about the abs, or if you're wondering how you should be training your abs, I really recommend checking that episode out. I spent a full 30 minutes talking about it, and that's just with the abs. That's how in-depth we can get, and I know a lot of people were able to implement some really cool things with that. So, without further ado, like I said, got a lot of things to talk about today. And, by the way, fun fact, I got props today. So, I'm going to be, where I can, I'm going to be showing you a couple different demonstrations for exercises. I just have really light dumbbells because I need to be able to move them around and, you know, don't want to destroy anything around me. So, there is that. I'm going to start with basically the shoulders, and we're just going to kind of work our way through the upper body. If I have time, like I said, I will get to legs, but we are taking a kind of deep dive. So, when I was putting this together, at first I was just going to give some exercises real quick and just make this a multi-parter, so talk about how to train it and stuff like that. But I really want you to be able to understand how the muscles work, because when you understand how and why they work the way that they do, it's a lot easier to understand how you should train them, and it's a lot easier to comprehend why we do certain exercises for certain things, or why we might avoid doing certain exercises as well, which you may have picked up on when you were doing the ab one. And again, abs is a whole other thing. So, that being said, we're going to start on the shoulders. So, a lot of people think, shoulders, okay, cool. I'm going to do presses. I'm just going to do presses all day long, or I'm going to do side raises. Well, yes, but also, let's take a look at them. So, your shoulders are actually made up of primarily three main muscles called your deltoids. There are a couple other muscles that tie into it. So, in your shoulder, you also have your rotator cuff. It's where 5 different muscles actually tie together. When you have a rotator cuff tear, it's usually one of those muscles that's giving you the problem, which means that everyone's rotator cuff tear, today's a good talking day, is going to be a little bit different. Some people who have torn a rotator cuff might not be able to raise their arm up to the side. They might not be able to pull their arms back. They may be fine going up to here, but as soon as it's overhead, there's something wrong. Keep in mind, if you have a rotator cuff tear, check with your doctor. Physical therapist is going to be your best friend with that. I'm not a physical therapist. I just know anatomy things, which is what I'm trying to relay. So we have three main muscles. The first one is your technical alert here, your anterior deltoid. That means your front delt. It's the one in the front of the shoulder. That one is responsible for raising the arm in front of the body. So just like so, I'm raising my arms up in front of my body. I look like Frankenstein right now, then I'm lowering them back down. They can go up over the head a little bit too, and that all works that front muscle. A lot of times when you're working out, your front deltoids, so your front delts, are probably one of the more involved muscles, which is funny because they're a smaller muscle. They help with so many other things though. What do I mean by that? So on top of, if we're doing front raises, which we'll get to some exercises in a second, if we are planted, my arms are out in front of me, and if I'm planted in a push-up position, then my front delts are loaded. So when you start to feel your shoulders going in, say, a push-up, or you're holding a push-up position and your shoulders are starting to get really tired, that's usually the muscle that's getting really tired. You could do a couple things to mitigate that, but in the end, again, it is an accessory muscle, so it helps with a lot of different things. Whether you're here, whether you're doing a press, whether you're doing an overhead press, there are a lot of things to do. Good exercise for that, again, is that front raise, which, if I have dumbbells, I'm raising these up. Now, I want to talk quick form when we're doing these front raises. A lot of people will round their shoulders up and then raise here. So they have this internal rotation of the shoulders, so I'm rolling my shoulders forward and then they're going. That's not very good for basically anything, because then you're starting to round your back a little bit, and you want to try and keep that neutral back the whole time. By the way, back is another one we're going to be spending some time on. So, front raise. I'm pulling the shoulders back and down, so I think about good posture, and then I'm going to raise those dumbbells up right to about shoulder height, lower them down. Now, back in the 70s, Arnold Schwarzenegger's favorite one was going all the way up. You don't really need to for most training sessions. Again, if you're in bodybuilding, maybe it has a use, but remember, there's no such thing as a bad exercise. There's just a right time or a wrong time and a wrong place for certain exercises. So, front raises are really good. Shoulder presses can be very good as well. If you're looking to stretch it, you actually want this weight to, well, we can put the props down, but we actually want our arms to be hanging or even pulling backwards. This is one of the more stretched positions for the shoulders. It's most contracted when we're up overhead really tight. And you can even kind of test that out by putting your hand on the front of your shoulder and just rolling your arm up and down. You can feel that muscle get tighter and flex when you're doing that, which is really cool. I do recommend whenever you're trying to figure out what muscle is working, if you could do something with one side, you'll be able to feel it really well. So, first one, front delts. Second one is your lateral deltoid, or the side delt. It's the side muscles. It's what gives you that nice little cap that a lot of people really like on their shoulders. It also helps you to look a little bit more broad when you are hitting some sort of poses, or whether you just have your shirt off or whatever. Main use for that is to raise your arm from side to side. So going here or here. So right up, this is a little bit of chest and back as well, but we have those Arnold presses, so we're kind of going a raise up to the side. That's the main use for this. So when we're doing side raises, we're hitting that side deltoid. A lot of people put a lot of focus on the front and side ones, so when we are talking about these side raises, again, I want to stand up nice and tall, shoulders down and back. I'm thinking of standing with good posture. And then I'm going to simply raise these dumbbells up to the side. Now, if I can get a little bit of a side view, so when I'm here and you're looking at the video, my elbow is a little bit bent. I don't have my arm locked out all the way. Putting my arm locked out, especially when I start to get to heavier weights, puts a ton of tension in that elbow joint, and that's not really what joints are made for. So we want to have a little bit of a bend that's going to keep weight in the muscles that we're trying to work, and then we're just going right up and right down. Again, not really going over shoulder height, or if we are, I want to make sure I'm palms up while I'm going up over the shoulders. But for a regular side raise, we're just trying to go straight up, side to side. And if you want a little bit more, take these dumbbells and tilt them forward just a little bit, like we're trying to pour out a pitcher of water. I'm not going too extreme, but just that little tilt will help get those muscles to fire as hard as they can, which is what our goal is when we're trying to hit these muscles. Really good exercises. Front and side delts, by the way, are two of my favorite muscle groups to work. Let's talk about that third delt, or that third shoulder muscle, though. It is your posterior deltoid. By the way, whenever you hear posterior, it's the back side of your body. And anterior is the front side of your body. So we have the anterior delt, which is on the front, and then we have the posterior delt, which is the rear delt, which is a really, really small muscle, and with a lot of people is really, really underdeveloped. So whenever I'm working with someone or writing workouts for people, I really try to make sure that we hit those rear delts to help bring them up. It's one of the quickest ways to fix that whole Neanderthal or this forward round. So if our chest does a lot of work, or maybe if you're a meathead who's in the gym and you do chest 3 times a week and you never focus on them, and you never focus on your back or legs. Legs are unrelated, but people who typically do chest 3 or 4 times a week kind of neglect their legs. Little Dorito syndrome. When we're doing things, which I'm going to talk about in a second, it can help pull everything back and help fix some shoulder, help with mobility. It feels really, really good. So, what does this rear delt do? Well, it rotates this arm back. Of course, there are some muscles in your back that do that as well, but it basically moves, it's this motion from the front back is where that goes. Some people actually consider the rear delt a back muscle. It is a deltoid though, so I consider that a shoulder muscle. And it helps to prevent internal rotation of the shoulder, which I just talked about. So we have internal rotation or external rotation. You don't want to be too externally rotated because then your back is going to hyperextend and it's really not good, but you also don't want to be walking around like this. So again, nice good posture, we're pulling back. What exercises can we do with this? Well, a few choices. My number one favorite is called a face pull. It is a compound exercise that works some of the back, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But if you have, say, cables or a handle, I'm pulling this up to the ears. So my thumbs are pointing right at my ears, and then I'm extending right back out. I'm pulling everything back. So my elbows are in line, right in, because I'm really trying to hit that rear delt in the shoulder. A couple of variations, you could pull that up to your, you can pull something up to your eyes, you could pull something right to your neck. Anywhere in between, it'll hit the muscles just a little bit differently. Variety is the spice of life, and variety is really good when we're training these muscles. So we want to make sure we're doing that as much as we can. Oh, another exercise I forgot about talking about the side delts that I really wanted to mention was an upright row, because a lot of people actually do these incorrectly. So, we're talking about the side delt with the upright row now, just in case I'm talking too quickly. I'm standing up nice and tall. Again, nice good posture. I'm not leaning myself forward. And I am simply pulling these weights up to about shoulder height and right back down. Can you do this with a barbell? Yes. Do I recommend doing it with a barbell? Again, it depends. There's some good use. If you have some shoulder issues, it's honestly better to use free weights like dumbbells for shoulder exercises. Simply because your body will kind of arrange and stack so that it's a little bit safer, especially if you have a spotter. But one thing with the barbell is you're kind of forced to be like so. So my hands are beneath my elbows. Shoulders and just everything in your upper body in general doesn't exactly like this position. It wants everything to be in line. So when we're hitting this upright row, we kind of want everything to be in line, so my wrists are in line with my elbows. Nothing is below or above anything else. And this position is really good for hitting the sides of the shoulders and the fronts a little bit, because we're going, it's a nice little hybrid move. So it's really good. We are going to take a break real quick. And next up, we are going to talk about the chest.
Punch. He'll bring the smarts. Now the sweat? Well, that's up to you.
And we're back. And we are going to talk about the chest. We just got done talking about the shoulders. Let's talk about the chest. For guys, it is basically one of the pride muscles, is that chest. A lot of guys just want really big gorilla chests, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I know a lot of people just want Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but we're going to talk about the chest. Your chest is mainly comprised of two muscles. There's a third one I'm going to talk about that can be considered either part of your core or your chest, but it ties in up by your shoulder, so I'm putting it in the chest just for convenience sake. Your chest muscles are, first off, you have your pectoralis major, which is that really big pec. It says major in it. That's the really big muscle that a lot of people think of. That one is responsible for moving the arm across the chest and towards the chest. So when we're coming in this way, our chest is responsible, and then our chest is responsible for reaching across the body as well. Excuse me. This muscle ties all the way into the arm. So if we're doing presses, number one, if we're doing a press, the shoulder helps with a lot of chest exercises. But when we're pressing, maybe we're starting to feel this over into the arm a little bit, and that's still your chest. It ties all the way into the arm underneath your delt, so it goes all the way through. So when you're feeling something out in the wide part, so maybe up in this little basically divot where your shoulder is, that's still your chest muscle. So when it's out super wide, you're still working those muscles. The other one, which is a lot smaller, is called your pectoralis minor, or your pec minor. That pulls your shoulder forward and down and assists in many chest exercises. So the whole forward and down right here, that's hitting your chest. So again, that whole wanting to avoid this, your pec minor usually gets too tight when you do a lot of chest exercises, so it pulls it forward. And that's why, going back to the shoulders, we do those rear delt flies and those face pulls to help pull everything back and balance. We really want to make sure that our muscles are balanced, because a muscle imbalance can make a lot of other things go wrong, and I will talk about that some other time, so I'm not digressing too much. The third one that I was talking about is called your serratus anterior, so that front serratus. If you see someone with a really ripped body, which I'm sure some people have no problem sending a link for, it's kind of like those little three muscles that kind of pop out in the front. Your serratus is up there. And that is for moving your shoulder blades forward and up. So if I'm trying to reach up and across, it's kind of like a diagonal pulling motion, or diagonal movement. That's what that's responsible for. And again, being overhead is going to help stretch everything out. If you want to stretch your chest, by the way, I recommend a doorway stretch. So if there's a doorway here, I can go ahead and put my arm against the doorway nice and low and stretch it out. A lot of people have really tight chests, so it's a really good idea. So what exercises can we do to work our chest muscles? Well, the number one thing, I'm going to start with body weight, is a push-up, which you can do multiple different ways. I'll post a video later, at some point later this week, mainly because, I'm not super consistent with the videos, but I'll post a video talking about proper push-ups later this week, so that everyone knows. But basically the gist of it is, make sure your push-ups aren't up here. I want you to think of it as, if you're going to go up and shove someone, you push people here. You don't come up like this, and I'm not pushing against a wall here. I'm pushing against a wall here, and I'm trying to shove it as hard as I can. Think about that whenever you're doing a push-up, whenever you're doing something like a bench press, which is another really good chest exercise. You can go a chest fly, which I don't have the space, to be honest, right now, to do a chest fly, plus, a lot of finagling with the camera. But whenever you're doing a chest fly, I always like to think about making an arrow with your body, so I'm not coming straight out, because again, this is going to put some not so good tension in that shoulder, but I want to come down at a slight angle, and when I pull this up, I want to think about hugging a really big tree and shoving my elbows together as close as I can to get that nice squeeze, because remember, that chest works off of bringing that arm in front of and across your body. So we want to make a nice good squeeze. In order to do that, we have to pull those elbows together as close as they can, and that's going to give you a really nice squeeze in that chest. Bench press, same deal. We want that barbell to stay right around nipple level, so bringing it down, right up. If you're a power lifter, obviously there are different scenarios and different things going with that. That's a whole other conversation, is the differences in bench pressing for different sports. Just do whatever is the most, is the most applicable for you or the most functional for you. If you're a bodybuilder, maybe the powerlifting bench press isn't the best option, but if you are a CrossFitter and you don't have to bench press too often, maybe you want a nice little hybrid in between. And again, that's a whole other conversation. I have a couple people that I could probably bring on just to talk about powerlifting form versus everything else. So, chest muscles, again, we're here, and again, if our arms are up, our front delts. So like I was saying, when we're working our chest muscles, our shoulders are involved. Our shoulders are involved in a lot more than you really think about. So when they start to get tired in a workout and you are wondering, but I'm not even working my shoulders, chances are you might be. So keep that in mind, and when in doubt, ask whatever coach you might be talking to, or if you're by yourself, quick Google, why do my shoulders feel this way? All right, next up we're going to talk about the arms. The arms. So with guys, it's chest and it's all about the biceps. Arm muscles are really important as well. I'm going to go ahead and get, the one that everyone likes to talk about, those biceps. We're going to get the biceps out of the way. Everyone's favorite one. Just want to do curls for days. It's basically like the stereotypical bro exercise is the curl. What is the biceps, though? So your biceps bi means two, ceps is translated into head. So when you say biceps, it's technically correct, even if you're talking about your left biceps, because two heads. It's weird. The bicep is responsible for, I just did it, biceps is responsible for bending the elbow. So basically raising your hand up to your shoulder, bending the arm. It is also, little known fact, responsible for shoulder rotation. And if you don't believe me, bring your arms, bend your arms, go palms down. Now look at your arms and rotate your hands upwards and try and tilt your pinkies out and around. So you're really trying to twist. If you look at your arm, which I think the camera's a little too far away, you can see that bicep muscle flexing more. So when we're working on those curls, we want that little twist at the end to make sure that we're getting that full flex in that bicep. That nice little twist is going through that, what we like to call full range of motion. So if I'm doing my curls and I'm right here, that's only a partial range of motion. Whenever you're working a muscle group, barring injury or lack of mobility, you want to try and go through the full range of motion, which means on this bicep, we want to go with a extended arm, and we want to curl that weight up. Now, when we're talking about curls, I just have one little 5-pound dumbbell. But when I'm talking about curls, a lot of people will curl and they'll bring their arm up because they think that this weight needs to be above their shoulder. But we just talked about shoulders, right? So what is this? This is that raising of the arm. So all of a sudden my shoulder gets more involved and it takes that tension off the biceps. So if we want to isolate those arms as much as we can, we want to keep those elbows locked in and curl here. All of a sudden this dumbbell's below my shoulder, right? But I'm making sure that the bicep is nice and tight and I have this little twist. Those are the regular curls, because really when you're training biceps, you're going to be doing curls on curls on curls, because again, that it's responsible for bending the elbow. We're talking about the second head now. So one head hits that, the other head you can hit by doing hammer curls. Hammer curls is another really good exercise, but again, I don't want to be swinging this weight up, because if I'm here, my shoulders are basically just as involved. So elbows locked in, hitting those hammer curls, and even if I'm going here, if I'm hitting one arm at a time, I'm not going like this because this momentum is helping me throw this weight up, which means that muscle is not doing as much work. So whenever I'm doing an alternating exercise, I want to make sure one rep is finished and at rest before I go into the next one, unless I'm specifying I'm trying to do twist curls or something like that, mainly to get blood into the arms. So the biceps, everyone talks about it, but fun fact, it's only 1/3 of your arm. The other 2/3 of your arm is taken up by that triceps, the back of the arm. By the way, in case you are listening, audio, biceps, front of the arm, triceps, back of the arm. What is the triceps used for? Well, first off, let's talk about the name, triceps. Biceps was 2 heads, right? Triceps is 3. We have our long head, our lateral head, and our medial head. You don't really need to know that, just fun, anatomy facts. The tricep is responsible for extending the arm. Again, it's 2/3 of your arm, and it's involved in basically any pushing motion you're going to be doing, whether it's a press, whether it's a push-up, whether it's a push-down, anything like that. And the funny thing about triceps is, even though it's 2/3 of your arm, and it can be used in a lot of applications, it tends to be underdeveloped. It tends to not be as strong as it needs to be, which can cause some issues in your shoulder or your elbow from your bicep being too tight and your tricep not being tight enough, and everything can be pulled out of whack. So if you notice that you're having some bicep pain, obviously check with the doctor or physical therapist first, but doing tricep work might be the best option for you. Again, any pushing motion is really, really good. Whenever we are working with it, we want to make sure we get those triceps as strong as we can, because fun fact, pushing motion, push-ups. How can you get better at push-ups? How can you make push-ups feel easier? By strengthening your triceps. So the push-up is a nice compound exercise, multi-joint, which means basically my elbow and my shoulder has to be involved. Anything that uses more than 2 joints is good. Couple exercises you can do for your triceps. I have dumbbells, so it's not exactly going to, I'm not going to have the most availability to be able to show you with me standing up, but for example, one exercise can be the overhead tricep extension. By the way, when we're doing presses, triceps also involved. So I'm going to have this dumbbell, I have my arm up, and remember, we want to pay attention to the range of motion. We don't want to force our arm up, so we want to keep some tension here, and we want to extend that arm up overhead. I'm trying to keep a nice good range. I'm not locking out my elbow because I want to keep tension in this tricep, but if you are lacking shoulder mobility, so if you can't raise your arm up over your head all the way, this exercise may not be the best one. Another one that we see a lot is called a tricep kickback, which is only so good because gravity only works up and down. It doesn't work side to side. So a lot of people do a kickback and they'll be right here. Well, your triceps only really engaged from basically almost the end motion to the very end range. So if I'm standing up doing these kickbacks, I'm there, but I can be bent over with my elbow up, and then this enhances that range of motion. The better option for doing a kickback is honestly going to be using a band or a cable pulley system, because that will allow you to keep tension on that muscle 100% of the time. Apparently, I've been talking for way longer than I thought I was. So we may have to break this up into either a multi-week thing, or I can just go a little bit longer. I think I'm going to break this up into a multi-week thing because I have the back coming up, and the back is a huge monster. It is way bigger to train or to think about training back than you really think it is. So hopefully you have gotten something out of talking about the shoulders and the chest and the arms, which you can think of honestly as mostly a push day, which we can talk about splits once I'm done talking about all these topics. Hopefully you got something out of this. We know what we need to work on. If you know that you're weak about something, drop a comment in the comment section below, and I can let you know a really quick exercise to be able to strengthen that body part, or if you see me in person a lot, feel free to talk to me. Hopefully, like I said, you got something out of this. If you have any questions about what I was talking about today, please, please, please reach out. I'd love to help you out. You can check me out on IPM Nation at ipmnation.com/counterpunch. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/TheDerekNoel in case you just kind of click the video to get this to come up. Or you can find me on YouTube in the link, which I will post as soon as I'm done with this show. And remember, every Tuesday, the podcast version drops. So if you're not able to watch the full version, you can always check out the audio version. They're a nice way to get time to fly by on that drive. Have a nice night, everybody.